Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman with all kinds of news the networks refuse to use. Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Our goal is to promote God, family, and country, and to protect life, liberty, and property. The good news, ladies and gentlemen, is we've got all kinds of tidbits to talk about today. First off, I want to just give a shout out to my crew. Zach and Michael and Liz and Jay and just about everybody are surrounding me and helping me get my microphone squared away, keep the audio quality good, upgrade my camera, make it look better, make sure I don't look like an old man. I mean, they're just doing phenomenal stuff. So just a big shout out to them. And, if it goes bad, blame it on me. And if it goes good, blame it on them. How's that, ladies and gentlemen? Nevertheless, economy and jobs are top, front, and center because of Donald Trump's State of the Union address. And here to break that down with me is Heath, who always joins us every Thursday on the show. And he does his very best to kind of tell the truth and lay it out from an honest money point of view. We call it the Honest Money Update. So to those of you who haven't watched, you need to start watching Heath Perkins with freewatercoinco.com with the Honest Money Update. Welcome, sir.
Thanks for having me on, Sam.
Hey, where's gold and silver sitting, first of all?
Gold's been sitting right around just over 5,000, so 5,169 and 20 cents right now. And silver is about $86.68.
All right, I love it. That's slightly down from what it's been a little bit because the stock market's doing so well. Mm-hmm. Everybody thought with the State of the Union that things would kind of go wild. It didn't. The dollar actually did a little bit better on the news because, a lot of people believe Donald Trump really is trying hard and doing his best to change the economy. And he said a lot of good stuff, and a lot of it's true. A lot of it's wishful thinking. But, hey, if you're working on the economy and it's slowly improving, he made the point, and we all agree, you can't change it in 1 year. I mean, it's very, very hard. Economic numbers lag quite a bit. Do you want to speak to that for a second, Heath?
Yeah, it's hard to have the effects that you're putting in right now, immediately happen. One of the side effects, unfortunately, when Trump was in the first go around, when he gave everyone $600 checks, and then the unemployment, he gave an additional $600 every single week. We didn't see that inflation for about 18 months. So it wasn't until Biden entered office that we actually saw the inflation effect of what was happening. So there are delays, economically speaking, of things you're trying to implement. And the effects are there, not immediately again, but they do show up and with that kind of delay on the economic side with the inflation. But yeah, you can't just immediately put a policy in place and it's functioning. There's a lot of work to be gone through before that's fully functioning part of the government at that point. And yeah, they do take some time to see the effects of it. So
now I think Donald Trump spoke factual when he said inflation and gas prices are down. I think that's provable. If you do year-over-year data on gas prices, they're down a few cents. Certainly inflation's down some. We got a ways to go, I think. Part of the problem, though, is the Fed calls 2% inflation where their target is. So Trump's doing better than the target. But to me, inflation is a evil tax that you can't ignore and pretend, if it's down, we're in great shape. We don't want inflation at all because it's a hidden tax on the people's the problem. They didn't talk about that at all, but gas prices are down, inflation is down, mortgage rates are lower. All that is factual. Now, Trump claims $19 trillion invested in the country under his leadership in 1 year. Hey, less than $1 trillion under Joe Biden. Those numbers are disputed by everybody, and I don't even know how we quantify those numbers as factual because are those deals that Trump's inked or those deals that we've actually seen the cash? I've been taught as a little kid, don't count your chickens before they're hatched, Heath.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, we for us to say that we've had that much investment, it would be a number crunching nightmare for anyone to try to attempt that. And so, not sure where those are coming from as well, but it is good to, have a bit more of an optimistic, statement. But I wish we were a little bit less divisive across the board. It's hard
Amen.
to unite a country when we keep pointing fingers. So we need to start figuring out how to stop that.
And I will also say this, if there really is $19 trillion already injected into the economy, in other words, committed dollars and really started, how come we're not feeling it? Because that's the problem that people are having is they're saying, Trump, even if we want to believe you, we're just not feeling it. Okay. And that's to me kind of where the rubber meets the road is that, I love these things, but I'm just not, at least as an employer and as an employee, I'm not feeling all that. So you talk to tons of people every day that are smart enough to have constitutional currency as a hedge to kind of stabilize their portfolio, to broaden what they've got in terms of their investments and has a protection in it. What do you feel like when people walk in and you discuss it? What was everybody saying?
Yeah, it's we kind of get the first edge of how things are going in the community, and right now a lot of people are struggling, just not able to make everything up, and so they've got to dip into their true savings with their silver or their gold, cash a little bit in here, a little bit in there. They constantly tell me that they'll be back to buy it due to just the finances. That tends to be more so a statement than an actual thing that happens. But yeah, people are struggling. Individuals are having to cover families' expenses from, funerals to rehab to different things like that. And so there's a constant dip into these kind of ultimate reserves in a sense for these individuals. And yeah, it's starting to get a little bit tough for people out there right now.
Now, I pray the economy is headed in the right direction. I see signs of that, as I've already mentioned. He says, drill, baby, drill. American oil production is up. I think there's facts to that. I think that's true. And I think that will drive gas prices down. Part of the problem, though, is he made you believe that they were kind of right around $2 a gallon. He even talked about Iowa, a great preliminary voter state, which is an interesting, kind of political thing. Nevertheless, he said, hey, they're 185 there. The average cost of a gallon of gas in the nation right now is like $2.92. And everywhere you go, it's at least $2.50 something for really in most places. And so, I don't know. To me, to kind of lead with that seems a little bit misleading. I'm not very happy really with that because I don't think it's accurate for most of us.
Yeah. Even us being a state that has a refinery, North Salt Lake, we still aren't seeing prices that are near that. We're an extra, 40% above that. So it's hard to see where they're gauging their numbers. And the funny thing is there's books about how to lie through statistics and stuff like that. And it's sad, but you can play around with numbers all day long and make things look rosier than they really are. But when someone really calculates the numbers, they can see for themselves that, there's a reality or there's not a reality to what they were saying.
And in all fairness, the State of the Union is a little bit like a resume,
Yep.
Heath. You don't want to lie, but you do want to put your best foot forward. You can't blame him for that either, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. Back to that 19 trillion in a sense in the country. I'm wondering how much of that is going to be something we don't really see because it's going to be the building all of these data centers for the AI. I wonder if that's bulk majority of what he's trying to there's funds set aside for those things. Will we see those? Will there actually be employees in these locations? Are they just going to be data centers that have very minimal maintenance requirements on it?
So there might be a boom to build them in the first place, but will they be long lasting, stable, good jobs? He did talk about job growth primarily focused on the private sector, not government expansion. And I do believe that's true, and I love to see that.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I agree. The private sector needs to be the thing that leads, and not the government. It's kind of like the idea of Keynesian economics, where if everything's lagging, the government can step in and spend extra. that shouldn't be the idea behind this. It should be citizens having a savings to where they can step in and start spending a little extra and take the lead and create the businesses, fill the gaps of where there's a need in the community, and reap those rewards based upon their hard work. So yeah.
Now, he brought up several examples of, hey, there's no taxes on overtime. There's no taxes on tips. There's no taxes on some Social Security. And I'm grateful for that. None of it applies to me, though. I'm not in a position where I earn overtime. I'm not in a position where I get tips. I'm not on Social Security. And so none of that really applies to me. Now, I'm not the guy that's angry about that and says, oh, because it doesn't apply to me, hey, nail the other guy. I'm happy when anybody gets lower taxes. But I would say this, I'd be much happier with lower taxes for everybody.
Yeah, no, I agree. We're getting a little bit out of hand. And then one of the other taxes that we really don't talk enough about, but people need to understand, is the value added tax. We don't get that the end consumer pretty much pays all the value added tax across every industry. I mean, quick example, you've got a mine that pulls iron ore out of the ground. They add a tax to that. So there's a value added tax. Since they pass that on to the refinery refines it, makes it into ingots. So there's another tax there. Then the ingots go to a steel mill. The steel mill rolls it out into something useful. There's another tax there. The wholesaler, ships it to a location that's more localized for certain areas. So there's another tax there. They got it closer to your proximity. And then finally, the retailer has to pass all of those value-added taxes right on to the end user. So we don't even know what that number is. It depends on how many times the value-added tax was added to each of those segments of business. And so
that's right. And Trump did point out a little bit, I think, even on gas in the places where it's the highest, they've even got local gas taxes at the state level that are out of control. So, we've got to kind of realize this. And I'm not here to attack anybody on taxes. I'm just saying, hey, the best way that I think we can address a lot of this is the governments at all levels taking too much in taxes? And I would say clearly yes. Now, Trump also mentioned DEI programs are ended. I think there's a lot of DEI still left in the corporate world lurking behind the scenes. It's these definitive statements that I would guard against or kind of warn, hey, don't make such definitive. Say, we've made a lot of progress on getting DEI out of things, but to say it's ended, again, those definitive always, never, yes, no, 100%, never, always, those statements alone are a little bit, you got to, it gives the other side room to argue, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's hard to show a resume that has, gray areas. And so, like you were saying, it's resume. It's just, he needs to make very definitive things and statements. And so it goes against him. But, we're looking at my honest feel is, if the government can't balance its budget, then they can't charge me extra on taxes. It's up to them to balance their budget. If they need to increase taxes somewhere, well, show me you can balance your budget, and I'd be more likely to be okay with, a project here, a project there. But they can't even balance their own budget. So why would I want to continue increasing taxes? Taxes should be less until they can balance their budget.
Well, should they even get paid if they don't balance the budget? That's another question, right?
Yeah, or should we take away the right for them to have insider trading during the time when they can't have a balanced budget? Really
Trump brought that up, and I think he's spot on. But here's the interesting thing, and I think that Lance brought this up to me yesterday on the show. Mm-hmm. They act like they have a special privilege and that we need some special law to say they can't insider trade. Insider trading is illegal already for everybody, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Besides politicians.
No. They have politicians, do they have a special privilege?
Yeah, they have an exemption.
They're allowed to commit fraud and literally insider trade.
There's actually an app that trades Nancy Pelosi's stock picks, and she has better success than Warren Buffett. She has better success than the industry's leader in stock picks, Warren Buffett. And it's just like, okay, if she has
just that good, Heath.
Yeah, she's amazing. She's a better financial advisor than anyone we're aware of. I mean, it's nuts.
There you have it. And so that's the problem, ladies and gentlemen. Trump urged to pass the Insider Trading Act. What I don't think they should be allowed to do, and I think it's a broader discussion, I certainly support the passage of that act, by the way. Nobody should do insider trading. But what I would like to see is a broader discussion that says, hey, congressmen, senators, they don't have the authority to eke out special privilege or protections for themselves. So if insider trading is bad for me, it's bad for thee, Heath.
Yeah, yeah, rules for thee, not for me, kind of a thing. We were in the same boat. It's ridiculous. And if you look at the portfolios that these individuals have, they get into Congress. I mean, if you want to become a millionaire, a multimillionaire, the easiest profession to get into to do so is a politician, a congressman, or a senator. The
Or
insider
download
trading,
the Pelosi app, right?
yeah, or just follow Pelosi's app, and you know right off the bat that it's going to be a great pick. But yeah, it's insane. They actually took it away from. So back during Obama's era, they took it away from themselves for a little bit and then reinstated it. So we've gone down this path of, they need not to do it, and they undid it, and then they put it back, reinstated it. It's not a good scenario where, the individuals who are supposed to be voting on our behalves have incentives to become so wealthy that they don't care about their constituents. Like wealth doesn't, I mean, their job there is to take care of the things that are happening in the country and to keep things, functioning and to balance a budget, not to be playing in the stock market and making more money in the stock market by multiple X factors than their wage that they're getting paid while they're out there.
And the people need to be wise enough to see that and to vote them out when they're doing that and to vote people in who won't do that. But at the same time, I believe President Trump is right. We need to make sure that the law treats them the same as everybody else. And so I support this, hey, no insider trading act. That's a good effort, and we need to make that for sure. And I would hope everybody would realize that's a smart thing. These people aren't Congress members forever, and they should not get a special privilege when they're there. Now, Trump also focused in a little bit on restoring home ownership. And I want to talk about that for a little bit because interest rates are going down. That's good. But home prices are way too high. Trump wants to keep them up because he says a lot of people have value in their homes. There's two sides to that coin, though. And poor Trump is in a very difficult spot here. Sadly, we believe the president's through everything. I don't know why the president even has an involvement in home ownership or home prices at all, for that matter. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking to Heath Perkins. He's with freewatercoinco.com. When you want a partner for honest money, constitutional currency, guidance on your portfolio, and more, think freewatercoinco.com and talk to Heath. He's available for you. Anyway, what do you think about this home ownership thing? I don't know that the president really has a role there, does he?
No, he doesn't have a role there. And to be honest, we would have been in a situation that was okay if we didn't allow back in 2018 the Federal Reserve to buy up all the bad assets off the banks. In 2018, in October, they started the repo program, and they started buying all the bad assets off the banks, which didn't allow any homes to come to market and to revalue what a true valued house should be versus these inflated prices. Because a buyer's agent will go in there and look at things that have been repoed and will say, hey, in this area, this short sale went for this price. So you need to take that into a consideration on your comparables. And they didn't get that chance. And so 2018, we missed out on the opportunity for the market to stabilize itself and come back into a realistic price point. But due to the Federal Reserve buying all the bad assets off the books of all these banks. And the sad part is the Federal Reserve has BlackRock as their pet financial advisors, and BlackRock gets first right to all of these assets the Federal Reserve wants to offload eventually. I mean, hence the reason why BlackRock's the largest single-family resident owner, or one of the largest in the U.S. I mean, they get the right to all these assets that didn't go back onto the market that normal citizens should have been picking up, so that they could, start revaluing what a true house should be in that area and have better comparables, so that it would.
And what you're talking about, Heath, in my mind, is the free market there, basically letting the reality of the risk versus the reward analysis kind of play out in the free market. Trump brought up this idea that, hey, we want to pass a law that says, hey, companies can't buy homes at inflated, crazy prices, stop, big corps from buying family homes. And I think the only reason they're doing that is because they see a very big profit margin on that, and they need places to park their money to give them a hedge against the fluctuating stock market and everything else. The better way to do that is let the free market just, take its toll. And, if there's not just tons of, quote, what's it called when you buy or you flip, flipping prices and or turning everything into rentals to park your money, then it wouldn't really be the same that way. They'd be more interested in the interest rate market saying, hey, let's buy these, collateralized debt obligations and let's buy packages instead of investing in homes directly. I think if the free market was left to do its normal thing, in other words, adjust for all those things based on supply and demand, risk, reward, et cetera, then I think that would really handle a lot of itself, Heath.
Yeah, no, I agree. As long as Trump is allowed to put into that bill that the Federal Reserve is part of those businesses that can't buy homes, they were the start of this. Like as soon as they started getting into it, from 2018 to current, you've seen house steadily increase in price. They're removing from the market these real assets and not allowing it to revalue in those areas. And so, yeah, as long as the Federal Reserve is part of those businesses that can't do that, I'd be completely fine with that.
I bought my house in 2002 for about 150 grand. It's worth now 600 grand, Heath.
Yeah.
I'm rich, buddy.
Oh yeah.
Here's the only problem. It doesn't do me any good because I can't use the money really unless I take out a loan, which I don't want to do. I've already got a loan and it's not paid off. But what good does it do me to have all that on paper? I don't really know that it does me a lot of good. So this idea that he wants to protect values, to protect these homeowners that are sitting on all this money, unless we borrow against it, it doesn't do us any good. If I sell my home and get that money, it doesn't do me a lot of good because I just got to buy another home that's expensive also.
Yeah. No, it's a catch-22. You're just paying higher taxes, property taxes at that point with the higher values of those homes. Plus, like these homes, you have to look at that added value to it. It's I don't know how to put it. Like we struggle with. So one of the things that I've run across during the 2008 collapse was the financial collapse that happened then was people were fine up until they couldn't continue borrowing from their lines of credit. So if they have all this
or they couldn't make their high payments.
Yeah, they couldn't afford the high payments, and so they had to borrow based upon equity in the home or something to that effect. So the only way that we're not going to see these house prices come down is when people start running out of that equity in their homes. Because they can continue to borrow upon those and continue to keep the whole thing afloat. So that's
the problem is the banks want to keep the prices up to make sure that they protect their investments. So see, that's the problem is we have all these triggers that manipulate the free market, and every one of these triggers relate to keeping prices up and preventing them, kind of a plunge protection team, preventing them from going down. So we've got a difficult economic reality on our hands. Do you think that Trump's right, though, that things are going to get better?
I think there are certain sectors that will get better, but I think that for the majority of us, we're still going to see, issues with cost of just day-to-day living. We don't understand that, inflation is what the Fed wants, and for them, their cardinal sin for the Federal Reserve is deflation, and we'll never see prices kind of go down due to the Fed not wanting that. So it's kind of their cardinal sin across the board.
Heath Perkins, everybody, freewatercoinco.com. When you want to partner for honest money to help you navigate the twists and turns and make sure that you end up on the positive side, think freewatercoinco.com. Thanks, Heath.
All right. Thanks for having me on, Sam.
You betcha, sir. Always doing a phenomenal job, ladies and gentlemen. One big old shout out for Donald J. Trump. At his State of the Union, he did promote faith, religion, and belief in God, and amen to that. I'm Sam Bushman. You're watching Liberty Roundtable Live.
Proclaiming liberty across the land. You're listening to Liberty News Radio.
Breaking news this hour from Town Hall. I'm Rich Thomason. Underway today in Geneva, it's a third round of indirect nuclear talks between Iran and the United States. We know the Cuban government's version of what happened. Secretary of State Rubio says the U.S. is conducting its own investigation. Havana says a boat from Florida opened fire on its forces, triggering a gunfight that killed 4 people on the boat.
The Cuban government says 10 people on a speedboat in waters off its northern coast were armed Cubans who'd been living in the U.S. It alleges the group have a known history of criminal and violent activity and were trying to infiltrate the island when they opened fire. Cuba's Interior Ministry says its forces responded, killing 4 of them. 6 others were wounded and detained. At a Caribbean summit, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said it was not a U.S. government operation, and both Homeland Security and the U.S. Coast Guard are investigating and trying to determine if those involved are American citizens or permanent residents. I'm Ben Thomas.
Bill and Hillary Clinton are set to testify starting today in the congressional Jeffrey Epstein investigation.
Hillary Clinton will testify first, followed by Bill Clinton on Friday. It will mark the first time that lawmakers have compelled a former president to testify. The Clintons agreed after facing the threat of a contempt charge. There's no evidence of wrongdoing on the part of either Clinton when it comes to Epstein, a convicted sex offender, but Epstein had ties to the former president for years. Greg Clugston, Washington.
Instagram plans to start alerting parents if their kids repeatedly search for terms clearly linked with suicide or self-harm. However, the alerts will only go to parents enrolled in Instagram's parental supervision program. The Dow is up 162 points, while the Nasdaq 181 points in the red. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Hi, it's Mike Gallagher. A lot of us are thinking about taxes, home projects we've been putting off, ways to get ahead financially in 2026. Now's the perfect time to talk to my friends at Fellowship Home Loans. If you want to lower your mortgage payment, they can help you refinance. If you need access to cash for home improvements or to wipe out high-interest debt, their fixed-rate line of credit is one of the best tools out there. Fast approval, predictable rate, and flexibility to use your home's equity wisely. Remember, many people still qualify to skip their next 2 mortgage payments. Imagine starting big projects or paying down debt with 2 months of breathing room. My family and I have used Fellowship personally. I trust these guys. Take control of 2026. Go to fellowshiphomeloans.com/Mike G. fellowshiphomeloans.com/Mike G. fellowshiphomeloans.com/Mike G, or call 800-510-MIKE. That's 800-510-6453. Fellowship Home Loans, mortgage lending by the book.
Nationwide Mortgage Bankers, DBA Fellowship Home Loans, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS number 819382.
Do you know what is great about America? Ask an Immigrant. Ask an Immigrant is a new podcast dedicated to helping Americans, especially our youth, value, appreciate, and be grateful for the freedoms we have here in America. Join host Lydia Wallace-Nuttall as she interviews immigrants from around the world to discover their inspiring personal stories about why they came to America. To learn more about why America is the most prosperous, greatest country in the world, download the Loving Liberty app or go to lovingliberty.net.
In the medical field, IT security is crucial. Our highly skilled consultants are HIPAA certified and have 20-plus years of experience servicing medical clinics, billing, and supply companies. We offer comprehensive endpoint protection, guarding your computers and servers against all stages of threats. And with our 24/7 monitoring services, you'll never worry about extensive downtime again. Ready to level up your IT support? Call 801-706-6980 today and discover how great IT services can be with managed IT services.
Why don't we say to the government writ large that they have to spend a little bit less? Anybody ever had less money this year than you had last? Anybody ever having a 1% pay cut? You deal with it. That's what government needs, a 1% pay cut. If you take a 1% pay cut across the board, you have more than enough money to actually pay for the disaster relief. But nobody's going to do that because they're fiscally irresponsible. Who are they? Republicans. Who are they? Democrats. Who are they? Virtually the whole body is careless and reckless with your money. So the money will not be offset by cuts anywhere. The money will be added to the debt, and there will be a day of reckoning. What's the day of reckoning? The day of reckoning may well be the collapse of the stock market. The day of reckoning may be the collapse of the dollar. When it comes, I can't tell you exactly, but But I can tell you it has happened repeatedly in history when countries ruin their currency.
All right, back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. Sam Bushman. Wow, great segment with Heath Perkins of freewatercoinco.com. Talking about the economy, and I pray the economy is going to be doing better because, boy, howdy, do we the American people need it, ladies and gentlemen. All right, I want to talk about two friends for a second. Tom Hartman's one of them. Great talk show host, very liberal. I'm conservative. We don't agree on a lot of things, but we agree on way more things than we disagree, number one. Number two, he's just the nicest guy in the world. And so I love talking to him because he understands how to discuss things in a very passionate, but yet kind, respectful, appropriate way. Well, Michael Harrison over at Talkers Mag, another dear friend, believes the same, does a great job. I don't understand how Michael does this. For literally 30 plus years, this guy has managed to navigate the left and the right and do so and have friends all across the board. It's incredible how these guys do this. And so I wanted to bring Michael Harrison on with me because he did a great interview on YouTube with Tom Hartman, and they had a lot of valuable points to make. Hi, Michael.
Hey there, Sam. Thanks for having me on.
You betcha. So your conversation was fascinating to me. I watched the whole thing, and you navigated things so well. The question is, hey, is Trump violating the First Amendment? And I think the answer is yes, to a great degree. You know, they complained a lot when, hey, the conservatives were being deplatformed. But then now it's turned around and now they're trying to deplatform liberals. And you guys talked about, you know, the comedians overnight and how they're commentators as well, even though they have a different twist, a different stick than maybe conservative talk radio. Really, in essence, it's the same. And do you want to speak to this? Because your conversation was riveting.
Well, this is an issue that frustrates me because I try to categorize things accurately. And that's one of the reasons I've had a successful career in the trade publishing business. You know, even back in the days when I was in music radio, you know, what's the difference between a soft rock station and a hard rock station, a country station and a top 40 station? You know, categorization is very important so that we understand what we're talking about. And when we can't categorize the different players under the umbrella of talk radio or talk media, then we have a problem. And the fact is, being funny doesn't mean you're not news, and being news doesn't mean anything at this point, because we're looking back at the days when licensed broadcast, you know, channels were a scarce commodity. It was the public airwaves. You had to be mindful of the fact that all these different people are sharing access to these limited number of channels, and that's why the FCC regulated what was being programmed. But in this world, and for the past 20, 30 years, it's built up to this, the line between what we call entertainment and what we call journalism, news, is a very blurry line indeed. As a matter of fact, I don't even think the line exists anymore. So you got to be very careful when you let the government infringe upon choosing what it thinks is appropriate, particularly in political speech, what it thinks is appropriate for the public airwaves, and what's news and what's entertainment. And we are all mucked up at this point about that. And if we allow the government to regulate the comedians on television late night under the misguided notion that that's not news, then we're really in trouble, because whatever it is that you give the government power to regulate can happen back to you and your own party and your own ideology the next time the election cycle comes around. So, I mean, left or right or center, we're all in this together. And it frustrates me to see our wonderful industry of talk media so divided, so political, and so weaponized that we don't see that. And so conservatives should be supporting liberals, and liberals should be supporting conservatives. That's always been my philosophy and the talker's philosophy in protecting our mutual First Amendment rights. Does that kind of clarify it?
Absolutely. And that's why I had to double down and jump in and have you on. defend Tom and defend others and say, hey, you know what? These comedians at night have every right to say what they want to say. And you guys brought up a critical point that I want to highlight because I think it's vital to understand. It acts as a safety valve. Michael?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it does. It's a safety valve for our society. I unfortunately am very frustrated with Donald Trump. I have not been a Trump basher. I've not been a Trump supporter, no more than I have dealt with any president.
Oh, are you still there, Michael? All right, I don't know how we lost him. We'll get Michael back. Michael was saying he's not a Trump supporter. He's not a Trump basher. And I really like that. What I try to do is when I believe that something is correct based on principles, then I support those principles. And if I believe something is incorrect based on principles, then I say that it's incorrect based on principles. And I'm not here to attack Donald. I'm not here to attack anyone. I'm also here to defend, in my opinion, what I believe to be the proper role of our nation, which is to follow the supreme law. After it all, it is the supreme law. But while we get Michael Harrison back, ladies and gentlemen, Michael Harrison is the founder, editor, and publisher of an incredible trade magazine called Talkers Magazine. It's over at talkers.com. And many of the people in radio and even TV and podcasters and all kinds of people literally watch this because it used to be called Talkers Magazine because it was talk radio. But now it's really talk media. I mean, what is radio when it's on the internet? What is it when you can listen anytime you want to, start a podcast over, and all these terms are getting blurred. But at the end of the day, there's commentators on all kinds of media, and we have the opportunity to express ourselves. And why does one person, just based on their quote format, say comedians overnight TV? Why do we want to think that's different than, say, the newsman on, say, ABC? Or on Fox or wherever else. And Michael, your point is that, hey, this is a safety valve. People kind of blow off their steam. You were mentioning that you're not a Trump supporter or a Trump basher, but that you try to walk this line, and you've done so well in the talk media world for 30 plus years. I like to base my views on principle. I'm not here to attack Donald or attack anybody else. I'm here to, in my opinion, back things based on principle as I see them. And as long as I do it civilly and kindly and respectfully, then I think, hey, I should be able to do that, right?
Absolutely. Sorry that we dropped our line there before. I don't know what I said or didn't say. So if I repeat myself, forgive me. But I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated by Donald Trump. I've tried to be fair to him as I try to be fair to all presidents, and I've been covering presidents for decades. We've been publishing Talkers Magazine for 36 years. We still call it a magazine, just like we call radio, whether it's heard on an AM or an FM dial or heard on your refrigerator. Radio is an aesthetic, as is a magazine. Magazine is an aesthetic. One of the things that I had mentioned, and I don't know if it came across, was that we have to be very, very modern and diligent in our categorization of things so that we know what we're talking about, because categories change as technology and sociology and the communications industry changes. So, that's one of the things we're dealing with right now. What is radio? What is Hollywood? I personally think Hollywood is dead, and that's a whole other discussion that I'm getting into in terms of my work. But we need to hold all politicians accountable. And it's very dangerous when the media or the news or the press or whatever we call ourselves today becomes a mouthpiece, an arm of any political party or any elected official. We should only give our support very carefully and very temporarily. We should rent our support to them, not give it wholeheartedly. And Donald Trump has become such an iconic figure within conservative talk radio that to attack Trump's policies for a very long time, I think it's changing now, was to attack the very essence of conservative talk radio. And so many things that Donald Trump is doing are not conservative. That's one of the things that Hartman and I talk about in our interview. A lot of the things that Trump is doing actually are liberal, or not liberal or conservative. They're whimsical. But I've left him alone because I don't get involved in that. But the one thing, and here's the point, Sam, the one thing that I and Talkers Magazine have been strong and opinionated and vigilant about has been the First Amendment. And now Trump is clearly screwing around with the First Amendment, so I have to speak out as much as I wish I didn't.
And I think you can respect the First Amendment, but I think time and place really matters. Let me give you an example. Donald Trump in the State of the Union picked out some people, and he didn't exactly name everybody, but he pointed the finger pretty good, which I wasn't pleased with. He was pro-America, which I really loved. There was a lot that I loved about his speech. There was a lot that was of concern. But at the end of the day, though, the problem is you had other Democrats refusing to stand. Go ahead and skip that break. Go ahead and skip the break. Thank you. Go ahead and stand. They literally shouted out and screamed against Donald Trump. So both sides, in my opinion, kind of had a problem there. There's a time and place for things. And John Fetterman broke with the Democrats and said, hey, how dare you? He urged civility and respect and said, don't do that. This isn't the right place to do that. And then, you got free speech, funny lines, and civility. I support the ability to say what you want to, but I do think there's a time and place. It's time to discuss it on late night TV. It's time to discuss it on talk radio. But when you're at an event where he's president and he's speaking about the State of the Union, just for respect for the oaths of office and who they are, and I think that, hey, a more civil tone in the State of the Union would be wise. CNN even pressed Omar on this disruption. And this is a reminder that I think time and place matters. I think you can use the First Amendment properly, but I think we have a responsibility there too a little bit. What do you say?
I think that's clear. I mean, the First Amendment doesn't give you the right to, first of all, expect everybody to leave you alone and not respond to what you're saying. It doesn't protect you from negative blowback, which is the First Amendment rights of those people that disagree with you. Behavior is a very different thing. Responsibility is a very different thing. I mean, if people act poorly and they go, well, it's my First Amendment right to act poorly. Yeah, and it's my First Amendment right to think you're a jerk. There's no, the First Amendment doesn't guarantee you a soapbox. It just guarantees you that you're not going to be censored by the government. It doesn't mean private business can't censor you. It means people can't turn you off. It means that sponsors can't boycott you. It means that you're not immune to any negative blowback. You have to face the consequences of your opinion, and you have to face the consequences of your behavior. And so when we see the State of the Union, and it's not just Trump, go back to Obama, go back to Bush, go back to Clinton, go back to whoever it is, and the people in the Congress, the representatives and the senators and the cabinet and the Supreme Court, all in this, the hallowed grand hall of the Capitol building, acting like jerks because they're so political and so obsessed with their team, their tribe. It doesn't feel good. It isn't right. It is not worthy of our nation's, environment, of our image as a nation. The world is looking on, and you make a very, very good point. There's a difference between behavior, appropriate behavior based on the circumstances, and the core value that the United States government or any government does not have the right to censor you.
The temperature, I guess I'm trying to think of the right word here. The temperature has changed. And I wrote an article back in 2015. It came out in 2016 called A Clarion Call for Civility, because I saw the temperature change. And you and Tom highlighted that very point towards the tail end of your interview, where Tom said, hey, I used to have conservatives on all the time, and we used to have these dialogues and debates and discussions, and I wish we could bring those days back. Do you want to speak to that? Because I think that really kind of tells the tale, doesn't it?
It tells the tale indeed. And one of the things that has changed gradually over the years has been the targeting of audiences as opposed to the gathering of audiences. The media, whether it's left or right or whatever it is today, tries to find vacuums out there among the general listenership and give them information, give them programming that they will like. that they will agree with. You can't even have somebody on the air who expresses a different point of view in a debate. Not at all. You just give them one thing after another of cherry-picked news items that fit your narrative. And this is destroying the credibility of the media, and it's destroying the ability of the media to give the general American public an overview of what's happening so that general Americans can choose and decide for themselves. And, just tell the people listening in our target audience what they want to hear, and let's find examples that boost that so they can get their daily dose of dopamine through the daily dance of affirmation. And
or maybe
you could find good things,
right?
Yeah, you can
I think it's
find
dollars
anything.
That drive a lot of that.
Dollars is what drives the whole thing, and that's the problem. When capitalism goes out of control and is run and driven by greed, it's no better than any other system. Systems don't have virtue by themselves. Systems are only guidelines and tools for people of virtue to be able to enact the daily operation of government or whatever it is. You can have a good system, but if it's run by bad people, you're going to have a bad system. And we've lost sight of that. Oh, you're a communist. I'd rather have I don't like communism at all. You know that. I am against it. But I'd rather have a good communist than a bad capitalist.
A naked capitalist or a naked communist betrays the principles, in either way. It's just too far extreme. And again, it betrays the whole point that we're making.
Exactly.
Let me just quickly tell you a story about how I know Tom. How I met Tom, believe it or not, is he used to interview conservatives back in the day. This is years ago. And I was with Richard Mack, Sheriff Richard Mack. And Tom invited conservative Richard Mack on his show, and I happened to be with Richard, and we went to Washington, D.C., and I went to Tom's studio, and I met Tom, and they had this incredible discussion debate. They did not agree, by the way. Tom and Richard Mack didn't agree, but they discussed things so civilly and so mature and respectfully that I walked away going, I think Tom's great. And then I had him on my show a couple of times, and we've been friends ever since. Then I went in 2024 to your event, Talker's event, and you had Tom and Mike Gallagher have a debate. And I thought, how refreshing. They didn't attack each other personally. They made their points. I'm sure both sides walked away agreeing with whatever side they believed in. But they were, in my opinion, they were gratified. They were increased in their knowledge. They hopefully saw the other person's point of view a little bit more clearly because the debate wasn't personal. It was discussed respectfully, with honor and integrity. They made their points. They sparred back and forth, but they did so, in my opinion, as Americans. Michael?
Mm-hmm. It was mutually beneficial. And that's the point. At our conferences, we don't allow that time of name calling and hatred and animosity. We are broadcasters. We have other things in common. When politics becomes the definition of who you are, what you are, who you hang with, and who you like and don't like, when politics becomes your identity, it generally leads to an imbalanced way of thinking and living. There are more things in life than just politics. Politics is a necessary evil. It keeps us from shooting each other and killing each other. It's a way in which we can settle our different interests. And when I say interests, I don't mean what you like to think about. Interests means your money and your property and your wealth. We settle these issues through politics, through elections, through debate, and that keeps us from being at each other's throats, literally as well as figuratively. And when we lose that, it doesn't take much to slide into chaos and into a very dangerous situation. Civil wars are the ugliest wars. They're the bloodiest wars. They're the ugliest wars. And we're already in an ideological and a media civil war in our country. And we've got to put the brakes on it because no one's going to win that one. I only wish that the Trump administration and Donald Trump would understand that they don't have to divide us for them to maintain a base that will keep them in power.
I will say this. Free speech matters. The First Amendment is sacred, in my opinion. Choosing the right time and place matters as well. We need to realize, yes, you have free speech, but you also have responsibility. Time and place is important. And I agree with Tom and his point at the end of your interview where he says, you know, hey, these conservatives won't even come on my show anymore because it's hard for them to defend their positions. I would hope we could get back to the point where liberals and those who disagree with me will come on my show for a fair, honest discussion where they might understand my point of view. I might be able to understand their point of view. I can go on their shows and they won't feel threatened that I'm just going to, you know, destroy them or they're going to destroy me or whatever the case may be. I pray for the return of the days, as Tom does, that we can, hey, have an open discussion, let the people decide. All boats rise when that happens, Michael.
Yeah, the future of talk media depends upon that. Otherwise, talk media is just another divisive element in our problem, in our growing problem in America. So, you know, back to Tom Hartman and Mike Gallagher, they walked off that stage shaking hands and being friends because they engaged in a very productive, mutually beneficial event. And when you have good debate and you're friends with your competitor, well, that's Americanism. You know, I think Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan were buddies, and they were harsh opponents politically on the stage during the time that Tip O'Neill was, I think, Speaker of the House and Reagan was president. But they didn't hate each other. We're not supposed to be that divided. We're supposed to have a left and a right view of the same issues. But right now it's out of hand. And the First Amendment is one of our only ways back. And if it becomes besmirched by weaponization or government edict, we have big problems. And it doesn't matter whether you're Jimmy Kimmel or you're Tom Hartman or, you know, you're Sean Hannity or Sam Bushman. It doesn't matter whether you're left or right. We should have mutual respect. We shouldn't be all that different. And we should not allow the government to tell us what we can talk about because that is the end of freedom in America.
If you all want to watch the Tom Hartman / Michael Harrison interview, you can go to talkers.com or look for it on YouTube. It basically talks about, hey, you know what, are we infringing on the First Amendment? And I think both sides of the aisle in recent times have done that, and I think it's a problem, and I think it needs to stop. By the way, you did an incredible another video that I want to tease right before the end of the hour for people to watch. You're an immigrant, huh?
Oh, yeah, it's called The Immigrant, and it starts out with me saying, I am an immigrant. I come from a faraway land to which I can never return. It's only 2.5 minutes. It's a lot of fun. I won't give the punchline because it kind of has a twist. Have your listeners check us out at YouTube by just going on YouTube and plugging in @TalkersMedia. And we have a whole bunch of interesting things, including the Tom Hartman interview and this new thing, The Immigrant, which we're getting a lot of reaction to. And I appreciate it.
You're also part of a band, which I think is pretty cool, where you do a lot of parody songs that kind of mock, on one hand, the environment that we're in a little bit, but at the same time, you make salient points about, in my mind, solutions, ways that we can improve and work together and kind of laugh at one another, laugh at ourselves a little bit, but at the same time, really hammer home critical points. Music is one way we do that. Comedian and their deliveries are one of the ways we do that. We've got to take a step back and laugh at ourselves, Michael.
We have to really be a little bit lighter and not take ourselves so damn seriously. Absolutely, Sam. Thanks.
Michael Harrison, everybody. Thank you so much. We'll have you back soon. Talkers.com is his website. Talkers Media, or @Talkers Media on YouTube. Check it out. Fun stuff. We all got to learn to work together, ladies and gentlemen. After all, we're going to be here together for a long time. At least I hope I'm around for a long time. That's all I've got to say. And I guess I'm an immigrant too, in the sense Michael brings out. Check it out. It's a lot of fun. I'm Sam Bushman. You're watching the one and only Liberty Roundtable Live, ladies and gentlemen. Check us out everywhere. YouTube, Rumble, your favorite platform, on your radio. We are syndicated by the Loving Liberty Network. LovingLiberty.net. Spread the word, share the love, and God save the Republic of the United States of America.